And literally every single bite of these is going to have some sort of cranberry, orange zest yumminess. Mmm. Mmm. Today is a nice chilly day in the desert, and so today we're going to make one of my favorite recipes for when I was in college, which are cranberry orange muffins. In a bowl with a cup and a half of just regular all-purpose flour, you're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, not baking soda. Um, to that, we're also going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Half a cup of yellow cornmeal. Now, cornmeal does come in a white cornmeal and a yellow cornmeal. The traditional cornmeal, if it doesn't have a color label on the front, is going to be yellow. So you're going to go ahead and add half a cup of that. And you're going to give that a quick little stir with your whisk, just to kind of get everything incorporated, just kind of get some air into the dry ingredients. Okay, and once that is all combined, we're going to move on to our wet ingredients. So we're starting with like dry ingredients, then we're doing wet ingredients, and then we're going to add some more dry ingredients and some wet ingredients back. Kind of hope that makes sense. So you're going to add a 1/4 cup of milk. I'm using whole milk here, but you can use any sort of milk that you prefer, whether it's dairy or non-dairy. And you're also going to add a same amount, so 1/4 cup of milk, a 1/4 cup of fresh orange juice. And you can use the orange juice that comes out of a bottle, but it's because for this recipe you're also going to be using orange zest, you might as well just get the orange juice out of the orange that you're getting the zest off of. So this is about 1 medium navel orange. I like navel oranges because they don't have a lot of seeds, if they have seeds at all. And then to that, you're going to add half a cup, here's the southern ingredient, a half a cup of melted whole butter. So again, if you're staying away from dairy, you can use your favorite non-dairy butter. You can use margarine, but you know, I learned this when I was in college in the South, so that means that we're just going to be using full-on butter. And I know that this looks kind of not liquidy, but don't worry, we're going to be adding 2 large eggs to this. And you're not making like a pancake batter, you are making almost like a muffin cupcake batter. So you do kind of want like a thicker batter than most. And once that comes all together, you're going to add the next batch of ingredients, which are our sweetening ingredients. So you're going to add a 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Like I said, this is not a healthy cupcakey muffin, like a breakfast muffin, but it's really good kind of as a dessert muffin, dessert cupcake-y. Addition to like your breakfast or like a brunch table. And then to that, you're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And this is a pretty thick batter. Now, if it is too thick, I would add like just a splash of milk or a splash more of orange juice. And a lot of that really does depend on like the humidity of where you live. That's kind of like the weird thing about baking anywhere in the country is, you know, I learned this recipe in the Carolinas where it's pretty humid year round. So if you're in a more humid climate, this recipe may end up looking a little looser for you. in which case you might want to add like a half tablespoon or like a half tablespoon of flour. And once the batter is mixed up, you're going to add kind of like the mix-ins. So you can add nuts to this if you like, but I'm just going to keep it kind of traditional and just add the orange zest. Orange zest. Did I say that right? Orange zest from the one navel orange that you got the 1/4 cup of orange juice from, which ends up being a couple of teaspoons. Mix that in so you don't get like big clumps of orange zest, because it's not really all that bitter, but it does add a little bit of bitterness because it's a peel. Orange zest throughout is really going to increase the orange flavor of these muffins. And then you're going to add, this is a cup of dried cranberries. So when you buy dried cranberries at the store, especially these days, you're going to have like your regular dried cranberries and you're going to have like the 50% sugar ones. I tend to use the lower sugar ones because there's so much sugar in the batter. And then you're going to fold the cranberries in, kind of like the same, concept as the orange zest. You don't want to have big gobs of cranberries, although that does sound tasty. You want to make sure that there's enough cranberries throughout the batter. And obviously you don't want to overwork this batter. So that's kind of why I'm kind of folding it rather than just kind of stirring it like crazy. You're going to get your muffin tin. You can do this unlined if you'd like, and just put a little butter and flour before you put the batter in. I like using muffin cups because I tend to like to give these as gifts. And you're going to spoon a little into each cup. Now you can also make this in a loaf pan, but I tend to like doing these in these muffin cupcakey molds. Kind of, half portion control, but also half, good as given for gifts. And I think when you make it in a loaf pan, you end up then having to slice it, which, there's some coffee chains that do that. But I tend to like the portability of doing these in a muffin tin. And you can also, if you want to do this super pro, you can use an ice cream scoop for this. But I don't know. I just have always found that just using 2 spoons is good enough. You're going to fill these about 3/4 of the way up. Once that's done, you're going to take, this is 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. This is super optional, but I tend to like a little crunchy topping. This is not a strudel topping because there's no flour in this, but just a little bit of brown sugar on top of each. And in the oven, that's going to caramelize and get a little crunchy. Okay, so oven is set at 350 degrees. You're going to pop this in there for 30 minutes. Just check at like the 20-minute mark. Make sure nothing is, getting over puffy, or the sugar is starting to caramelize a little too hard. But I'm gonna go and pop these in the oven for 30 minutes and clear out the table, and we'll see what comes out of the oven. So we'll be right back. This place smells so good. It smells like just just orange juice is like the predominant smell here. There's a little bit of cranberry, like, but it's mostly a very, very kind of orange, um, baked goodness smell that's just all over this house. It's so yummy. Um, so this baked 350 degrees for half an hour, and then I pulled them out. And obviously, like with baked goods, if you take them right out of the oven and then you try to slice them right away, then it ends up being kind of mushy. So you gotta let them cool. So I opened up the window and let them cool for about another half hour, and uh, it's so good. So let me go ahead and cut one of these up. Oh, actually, I should take them out of the wrapper first. And it does unwrap really, really easily, which is kind of why, like, I was saying, if you don't need to use, you don't need to use a paper wrapper if you don't want to, but I just like doing it because it's easy for cleanup, but it's also, good for like putting into like a little basket like this. So let me cut this in half. That brown sugar kind of crusty topping. It also has that kind of cornbready, cornmeal crunch also on top. And then, look, so much cranberry. It's so yummy looking. So these muffins are super yummy with just plain butter, but they're also amazing with cream cheese. I don't have any cream cheese here, but I do have a little bit of butter. Obviously, if you're gonna serve this as part of like a brunch table, you can probably warm these up so that the butter will melt. And literally every single bite of these is going to have some sort of cranberry, orange zest yumminess. Mmm. Mmm. Mm. And it's not, um, it's not cloyingly sweet. It's sweet, and it's a little desserty if you're gonna have this just by itself, with a cup of coffee for breakfast. Might be a little too sweet, but seriously, between the orange juice and the tartness of the cranberry, um, and the kind of crunchiness of the cornmeal, it's so delicious. And I have the bottom half, which doesn't have the crumb topping. And it's soft. And that kind of cornmeal, cornbread flavor kind of comes through, which is so good. And then obviously, like the muffin top, just the version of this is probably like the crunchiest part. Mm. Put these in the basket, serve them at your next brunch. Amazing with mimosas, obviously, because of the orange flavor. Really good just as a little extra something to put in like your lunch bag, um, picnic basket. I think you'll really like them. So I hope you really try them. Like I said, the recipe's fairly easy to make. And don't be Don't get worried if that batter looks a little thick, like you saw in my preparation. It's a really thick batter, but they do puff up and they're soft. They're really, really yummy, crunchy topping. And